Hello and welcome back to the DoneDeal YouTube channel. My name is David OC and today we have come to County Cork to check out the all-new Nissan Qashqai. Now, for many people the Qashqai isn't an SUV for the family, but it's the SUV for the family. It's always been very popular, and when it originally launched it kind of had somewhat of a monopoly. But then Hyundai said, no, we would like a little bit of that pie, and along came the Tucson. Now, the two battled it out for the last couple of years, always being Ireland's first and second best-selling cars. Then at the end of 2020, Hyundai introduced a new Tucson, and it took the world by storm, and we have reviewed it, and you can hit the link up there to check that out. But then Nissan kind of got left behind, and that's why we have the all-new Nissan Qashqai. Now, I will say we collected this one from Kearys Nissan earlier on in Cork, and it was gleaming black. However, the roads are a little bit dusty. The good weather makes Ireland seem somewhat like a desert. And I have to say, although I quite like the black, it is like wearing a face mask. You can't see its true beauty underneath it. You can't see the lines quite as well, but if you spec it in a different colour, you could be laughing. So let's check out the Qashqai and get into the review. The starting price for the Qashqai is $30,500, but naturally, like a lot of cars, you can spec it all the way up into the mid-40s. But in Ireland, we get four specs: XE, which is very basic, SV, SV Premium, which we have here, and then SVE. Now, where to spec your car on that is probably between the SV and maybe the SV Premium. So some of the differences are things like folding mirrors, you have rain sensitive wipers. This one, the SV Premium, comes with 18-inch wheels. So loads of little small bells and whistles. Again, some tech inside the car, which we'll talk about when we go out for a drive. But that is kind of an overall look at what the prices are versus what the specs are. So enough about the boring stuff, let's talk about how the new Qashqai has changed. Well, long story short, it's slightly longer, it's slightly taller, and it's slightly bigger in terms of girth. It's a little bit wider. So styling wise, as I said earlier, this is black and it hides the lines, but it's got some beautiful creases along here. The arches go nice and wide over the rear wheel, and it looks really well. Then from the rear, it's got a nice little spoiler here. The boot, it's similar to the old shape, however, they've somehow modernized it. And what they've done there is they've continued that longer, bigger theme. And these sleek lights are just that little bit longer. And then down here, you've got a bumper. Now, the exhaust isn't actually built into the bumper, it's underneath. However, my favorite upgrade and my favorite new angle is the front. You see, at the front, they've brought it up to date without losing its authenticity. It's got the V-motion grille here, and I really like these sleek, long lights with the LED daytime running lights. And from the front, I think it's its best angle. That said, my favorite part is definitely the cockpit. In here, compared to its predecessor, so if you're coming from the old Qashqai into this, it is night and day different. It's absolutely stunning. The steering wheel is gorgeous. It feels really good, and that's kind of the theme in here. Everything you touch, everything you feel, it all feels very premium. The seats are really comfortable, like actually extraordinarily comfortable. The whole layout in here, you can get into the perfect position. You can upgrade to massage seats if you want. That's the type of stuff that you see in a Mercedes S-Class, and now we're getting it in a Nissan Qashqai. Now, the layout in here, so we'll talk through a bit of a breakdown. Down here, there is your climate control. Now, the climate control, it's all using buttons, which I really like. A lot of the time now, it's gotten really fancy and you're moving it around. I do like just being able to twist knobs and turn the temperature up and down. Then here you've got a 9-inch display. The graphics are fantastic. So to talk you through it, it is infinitely customizable. You can set it up however you like. It is relatively easy to navigate. What I will say is something like a Volkswagen Tiguan, their kind of infotainment system tends to be a little bit more intuitive. That said, that's nothing against this. And if you get the SV and the SV Premium, you will get Apple CarPlay wirelessly. So my phone's fully connected up. If you have an Android, you will still have to plug it in. But yeah, the whole system here works really well. Then over here, you've got a big 12.3 inch digital display, and it's fantastic. You can customize it just as you like. You can select all your vehicle settings down here, all the driver aids, everything's controlled from over here, which is really, really nice. And you've got some controls on the steering wheel too, which include your cruise control and all those nice features. Then in terms of storage, well, you've got a nice big deep armrest, and there is a USB and a USB-C charging point, so I like that there's both options there. Then over here you've actually got a fast charger, and it's also got wireless charging, which is really, really cool. Big glove box here, although apparently word on the street is if you get a left-hand drive one, the glove box is even bigger. Nice big door bins there for drinks, and 2 drink holders in the middle. So overall in here the cockpit is lovely. Obviously it's going to completely vary depending on what spec you get, so an XE is not going to be half as nice as an SVE, but that's kind of the same with every car. Last thing I will say is, if you're getting into this from a Qashqai, it's night and day different. However, if you're coming from a Tucson, you might not like it as much. I really like the way the Tucson, you're in a bit more of kind of an actual cockpit. There's a big center console here. You definitely feel like you're sharing it with the passenger. So as long as you're not selfish, you'll like it in here. Now, rear space for the children, for the babies. Well, first of all, if you've watched any Qashqai reviews or you've read anything about it, you'll know the door opens 85 degrees, which means getting the child seat in is going to be a doddle. And what's more is the ISOFIX points are so easily accessible. However, much like an Audi, you may end up losing these, whereas in things like Peugeots, they actually stay stuck in. Just kind of one of those things to look out for. Now, as you sit in as a fully grown adult, and yes, I am fully grown, all 5'10" of me, I actually sit in complete comfort, and this has the option sunroof, so I'm actually winning in here. In terms of knee space, loads, you got a bit of storage, drink holders down here. There's an armrest here, so if you don't have 3 passengers, you can put your drinks in there as well. And I really like this. Again, we've got USB and USB-C charging points, so whether your phone's old or new, you'll be able to charge it without any problems. Great for the kids as well. So if you're buying a family SUV, the chances are you have a family. And if you have a family, whilst I'm no mathematician, they most likely have things. And those things have to go somewhere. And voila, we've got the boot. Now, whilst it is about 70 litres bigger than its predecessor at 503 or 504 litres, it's still not as big as something like a Tiguan. Now, whilst it's not as big, it is very, very functional. So you can kind of decide what level you have your floor on, which is really, really nice. It's got a 12-volt socket, and under here, it has a spare wheel. Absolutely love to see that. Now, one maybe slight drawback is to fold those rear seats. Unlike the Tiguan where you can just pull them there, you are going to have to walk around here and pull it down. Now, the one thing I will say is there's a nice little clip here that you can attach a seatbelt so they don't get stuck. A big bonus though is there is no load lip, and actually it's a little bit lower than the original Qashqai for getting things in. So if you've got a big old suitcase or whatever families have, it's easy to get them in and out. You don't have to lift them too high. So to drive, what is the Qashqai like? Well, in my opinion, it's leaps and bounds better than its predecessor. So the biggest thing I've noticed is, as a whole feeling, with the old Qashqai, you just got this sense that it was dull, that it was just a lifeless car. However, with the new one, it definitely feels like it's got a bit of character. To start with, the engine is much more punchy. It's got a 1.3 litre petrol, it's turbocharged, and there's 2 different power outputs. One in the 130 brake horsepower, and another one, I think it's 156 horsepower. Both more than suffice, and they just have a bit of punch to them. When you're in the low speeds and a low gear, and you give it a bit of acceleration, you actually get a bit of a response, which is quite nice. The other thing to mention is that there's no diesel version. Very, very interesting move, but I suppose this is the world we live in, and this petrol version on a long journey should be quite economical. Now, it will be coming in 2022 with a hybrid version. Effectively, how it's going to work is there's going to be a petrol engine in the car, but its sole purpose is to generate power for the electric motor. So there's going to be a tiny, tiny electric battery, and effectively that engine is going to power it. So a bit of a different approach to a lot of the car manufacturers, but if it works and they use Nissan's sophisticated engineering, it could be very, very good. Now, importantly, what is it like to drive in the real world? Right now I'm driving through Cork, and again, you can kind of feel that punchy power as I take off. The gearbox is really, really smooth. This has a 6-speed manual. I'm told the automatic is fantastic too, but I haven't actually driven it myself. The gearbox, all the gears just find themselves easy. You're not struggling to find them. The clutch is nice and light. All the pedals feel like they're in the right location. Sometimes they can be off to the left or the right, particularly in narrow cars. They often feel like they're kind of pointing in one direction. But overall in here to drive, it is sublime. And I think the thing that really impressed me the most out of this whole car is when you take it on some bouncier roads. So when we were looking for a nice location to film today, we basically drove all of rural Cork. And I don't know if you've driven rural Cork, but there's some pretty bad roads. And I have to say, I was flabbergasted at how smooth this took each and every bump. It really just glides along the road, even on the 18-inch wheels that are kind of an upgrade as such. So even on the 17-inch, I've no doubt it would be smoother again. So overall, very impressed. You can upgrade to some multi-link suspension. I suspect not even one of those cars will come into Ireland, or it's unlikely anyway. But as a whole, I have to say, it's very easy to live with. Whilst it's an SUV, it's not gigantic, so it's easy to park. The turning circle is pretty good. It's maybe not as good as something that's a little bit smaller, let's say a Peugeot 2008 for example, that has an exceptional turning circle, or even some of the new electric cars like the ID3s, but it is very, very impressive. At this point in every Done Deal review, we discuss some of our favourite and least favourite things about the car we're reviewing. And as always, you have to go scrutinising to really find problems. However, one thing I did notice is back in the day, you used to have the Qashqai Plus 2, and that meant there were 7 seats. But nowadays, it's only available as a 5-seater. And I know you probably could throw 2 of the kids in there, but that would be highly illegal and probably quite dangerous. Number 2 is actually to do with passengers as well. So in a lot of modern family cars, you'll get 3 ISOFIX points, 2 in the rear and 1 in the front. However, the Qashqai doesn't actually have any ISOFIX points in here, which should be fine. However, this is the king of the family SUV, so you'd nearly take it for granted that it's there. And number 3 is lane assist. Now, to be fair, the Qashqai has big boots to fill, as I genuinely believe Kia and Hyundai have mastered lane assist and it's perfect. However, I want to demonstrate, when I go over my line, this thing vibrates like crazy, and you probably can't hear it on the camera, but it is quite, I suppose it's doing its job. It's waking me up, making me alert. However, it's a little bit too much. The good news is you can turn it off. Number 1 on my favorite things is the attention to detail. You really get the sense Nissan didn't just rush this one out of the factory. They actually put some time and effort into it. And you see that with these nice little details like Qashqai here on the side panel. Number 2 is that 20 millimeters of the extra length in the new Qashqai is all given to rear passengers. So if you're a little bit taller, you've got a lot of extra knee room, and actually it does make a good difference, even though 20 millimeters is not a whole lot. And last but not least is that for 1100 of your finest euros, you can upgrade to the panoramic sunroof. And it's one extra that I absolutely adore, and it's probably one of the things that I couldn't do without. So definitely, if you're building one, strongly consider that. So as we come to the end of our journey in the Qashqai, where does it leave us? Do we buy the Hyundai Tucson? Do we get the Volkswagen Tiguan, the Seat Ateca? The options are endless, and to be honest, I think it's a subjective thing. I think a lot of people get quite attached to one brand, so if you get a Hyundai, you get Hyundais for the rest of your life. But what I will say is, if you do end up buying a Qashqai, I can be sure that you'll be very happy with it. And I've no doubt that there are going to be thousands of these on the road within the next year or two. They're going to be a very popular choice. So I hope you've enjoyed the review. If you have, please make sure to subscribe, give the video a like, a comment, let us know what car you drive, what car you'd like to see us review in the near future. And of course, if you'd like to search for Qashqais for sale in Ireland from over 1,000 trust dealers nationwide, hit the link on the top right hand corner of the screen. A big thanks to Kearys Nissan in County Cork for giving us this car today to test it out and see what we make of it. Very impressed. But for now, that is all from me. We'll see you in the next one.